Why democracy should never be taken for granted and lightly. I'm going to share with you today the story from the history. It started in 1919. And it started with the Treaty of Versailles. Involves the cocaine, involves the prostitution, and involves tyranny and the war. So on June 28, 1919, at 3:50 p.m., the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and World War I was conclusively over. The agreement, which was signed outside of Paris at the Palace of Versailles, comprised 440 provisions that destroyed Germany, the victor of the war economically and morally. Germany suffered greatly as a result of the Treaty of Versailles because it was forced to acknowledge its war guilt and pay for war compensation. So just start thinking about this one. You lost the war, you've been humiliated, and then your war guilt needs to pay in compensation. We understand when you're a victor, or when you're a loser, you're hoping that winner is going to have some mercy and going to show some understanding. The map of Europe was also altered by the text. All German colonies were lost along 10% of its people and 15% of its land. Germany was made to look bad, and the severity of the deal infuriated the German populace. In Germany, the empire was abolished following World War I. Then the Weimar Republic was established. It lasted 14 years. It was a period of fear and uncertainty, but also of hedonism and, what else? Sexual liberation. Around 100 years ago, Germany adopted the Weimar Constitution, which abolished the empire and officially established the Weimar Republic as a parliamentary republic. After Germany's defeat in World War I, German Emperor Wilhelm II abdicated in November 1918. And as you know, November 1918, World War I ended. The new constitution was founded on modern and liberal principles such as equal rights for all citizens, universal suffrage, and thus the right to vote for women, the 8-hour workday, and assistance for the underprivileged, separation of church and the state. However, neither the constitution nor the state lasted long. When the Nazis took power in 1933, they overthrew the government and established a dictatorship. So, when I say Weimar Republic lasted 14 years, 1919 to 1933, and then German Nazi took power in 1933. This Weimar Constitution was fantastic and innovative for its time. It was modern, enlightened, based on fundamental rights, emancipatory, and granted women the right to vote, but it could not prevent Hitler from coming to power. According to some historians, the Weimar Constitution served as a foundation for the establishment of a federal, democratic, and social legal state. However, difficult circumstances for democratic development, such as the global economic crisis, hyperinflation, and mass unemployment, must be considered. Doesn't this sound interesting to you? Familiar? Economic crisis, hyperinflation, and mass unemployment must be considered. I think that we are in 2022 and 2023 experiencing right now, and that is the fundamental element and a stepping stone for potential loss of democracy. Another historian described the Weimar Republic as an unstable democracy characterized by fear and uncertainty, but it was also a time of hedonism, sexual freedom, and artistic experimentation. Specifically, there was a great deal of demoralization in Germany at the time. Many of Germans associate the establishment of the Weimar Republic with the trauma of military defeat in World War I and the humiliating peace treaty imposed on Germany by the Western Allies. They were all fighting against the new republic. The Weimar Republic, after location of the First Assembly, was actually on the verge of collapse from the start. Numerous opponents of democracy fought against the newly formed republic, including monarchists and national socialists. Both the left and right have attacked parliamentary democracy. The military leadership had mixed feelings about republic. He supported that the state in the abstract and tolerated a democracy without enthusiasm. Now, when the Allied conditions were announced in early May 1919. The shock in Germany was greater than it would have been if the military defeat had been obvious. Now, so they signed this Treaty of Versailles, and then Allied told them this is our conditions, and that shook Germany to the core. Germany lost 13% of its European territory, including the rich agriculture industrial areas in the east, and about 10% of its pre-war population of 65 million people. 10%. Germany was harmed by economic conditions, but the damage was not irreversible. The most serious consequences were political and psychological in the nature. The humiliation was exacerbated by the imposed obligation of demilitarization. The once dominant German army, which could still call up 4.5 million soldiers in 1918, was reduced to 100,000 men, and general conscription was prohibited. The most outrage was directed by the Article 231, the Treaty of Versailles and its implications. The most outrage was directed by the Article 231 of the Treaty of Versailles and its implication. The article, known colloquially as the War Guilt Clause, established that Germany and its allies were responsible for the war. Its inclusion in the Treaty of Versailles was strongly urged by French and British public opinion, and it served as the legal basis for Germany's obligations to pay reparations for war damage. The Allied Commission was given the task of calculating compensation, and it came up with, I can't even say that number, they come up with the figure of 132 billion gold marks. I mean, I can't even imagine 132 billion marks in 1923, sorry. So, but it's billion gold marks. So that was a compensation. 132 billion gold marks in 1923. No matter how much was borrowed, it could be repaid in smaller amounts over an extended period of time without severely harming the German economy. However, the majority of that sum ends up unpaid. Political harm resulted. The German army did not win only because it was sabotaged from within its own nation, but left was to blame for that, according to an evil legend about stabbing in the back. It is therefore not surprising that people choose to escape the make-believe world rather than confront the frequently less rosy truth. The real causes of the war was debacle were hidden because no one wanted to acknowledge them, and the Imperial German national establishment was also partially to blame. In particular, man-made paradises were popular in the Weimar Republic. The young nation was bathed in mind-altering and stupefying substances. Don't forget one thing. Germany was the world top producer and seller of the drugs, both before and after the war. And the manufacturers' opiates stayed a German specialty. As we know, in the Second World War, German military was consuming crystal meth on an industrial scale. Even today, the Weimar Republic era is associated with a decadent time that was also characterized by extreme suffering and destitution. Now, there's a guy coming into the power. Hitler's ascent to power led to destruction of the Republic. In Germany, few sympathized with her. Weimar Republic. In contrast to Germany, which lost its, albeit relatively small, extraterritorial possessions by the Treaty of Versailles, France and England could acquire natural stimulants such as coffee, tea, vanilla, pepper, and other natural medicine from their overseas colonies, or exempt to create intentionally. Germans, they couldn't. Because the nation required incentives, the disaster war left behind deep scars and a range of physical and mental pains. Drugs continued to acquire popularity in the 1920s among the depressed people living between the East Sea and the Alps. Now, let's go stop here for a second. We had a lockdown since 1920, and apart of we dealing with a pandemic, we had a different pandemic, mental health. And what actually that lockdown increased usage of the drugs. for the depression, stress, anxiety, and list goes on. So it was similar like in 1920s. So the drugs was being continued to acquire by popularity in 1920s, and 100 years later, we are now acquiring even more. The Weimar Republic was all about manufactured paradises, drugs. People would rather escape into make-believe worlds than to have to deal with the frequently less than ideal truth. The real causes of the war debacle were hidden because no one wanted to acknowledge them, and the Imperial German national establishment was also partially to blame. Berlin was referred as the harlot of Babylon, home to the most vile underworld that revealed in the most heinous vices conceivable, including intoxicants and drugs. Berlin nightlife has never been seen by the world before, from fanatic strength to fanatic perversions. Everything's now being permitted in Weimar Republic because the World War was lost, and the city has changed into the European center of experimentation. Why is that? In Berlin pharmacies alone, 73 kilograms of morphine were dispensed with a valid prescription in 1928. 73 kilograms of morphine. 1928. Oh, take consideration, less people. And it was being administered obviously by injections, right? That's 1928. Berlin, 73 kilograms of morphine alone. Cocaine was the most potent tool for enhancing that moment and was enjoyed by those who could buy it. Coca. Well, coca symbolized the decadent era by spreading everywhere. However, now there's a trouble. The fascists and the communists who clashed in the streets both detested its degenerative poison in equal measures. Surprise, surprise. The Nazis offered an ideological cure and had their own formula for curing the populace. The system, which only the Führer was meant to seduce, no longer had a room for seductive poisons. This stoke nationalism provided fertile ground for the rising Nazi power, headed by Adolf Hitler, who took power in 1933 and refused to make additional reparations. Europe quickly found itself at war once more. Unemployment, depression, economical instability create a lot of stress, anxiety for the humans. And somebody gonna explode this. Happened in Germany, 1933, and the war plunged into another war. Thank you for watching Live the Battlefield with Mario. Feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment. By leaving comments below, we can learn from each other much more better. Thank you.